everybody. Morning. So probably should have cleaned up out here before I started filming, but anyway, this is a tree that I can't remember the name of. I'll just put it in the description later. Thinking that it's some kind of Chinese holly or something like that. Pretty sure that that's what it is. It's also used out here in Florida as a shrub for landscaping. I saved this one from a landscape that it was going to have to be just removed and gotten rid of. So I brought it home and put it in a pot. It's been in this pot for 2 years now, and it's doing okay, but it definitely is way bigger than the pot now. It was kind of too big for the pot when I put it in the pot, but that's what I had at the time. And the roosters, of course, they're gonna be noisy and loud. So yeah, please excuse that. I've got a couple of different pots that I was thinking about putting this in. The pot looks like it's about the same size as this one. No, it's about the same size too. So those are not going to be the pots. I will grab a different pot here. Give me just 1 second. Alright, so I picked this one up from a garden center in Colorado. If y'all are ever in the Aurora area, Nick's Garden Center is a pretty awesome place. I'll bring this up, see if you guys can see the logo there. There you go, Nick's Garden Center. I'm going to cover up the price because I don't know if this will be the price of the pots that you find or not, so I don't want to do any false advertising for them. But it was a very reasonable price, so I picked up this pot. And it's not a super awesome pot. I mean, it's one that is mass produced, but it's a good sized pot. It'll work really well for this tree, I think, because I mean, it's gonna fit just like this. So I think that'll fit the tree a lot better. I am going to trim off some of the scraggly branches, or however you would say that. Like this branch is kind of going across everything here. Some other branches going across everything. Some branches growing up into the middle. So I'm going to take all that stuff off. I might do some profile pruning also, but I might not, because I think I'm going to just let this grow for a while, because it looks like it's doing okay. I mean, it's alive. It's producing berries, which I'm definitely going to take all the berries off, because I don't need this putting all its energy into the berries. I want it to put it into the growth of the foliage. There was some dieback from the winter time, so I'm going to take off all that stuff too. Pull the weeds. Obviously, I'm going to repot it, so I'm going to pull the weeds out and repot it. Got my soil right here. Put this up here. Move these over. Alright, I'm going to put this up here. So yeah, I'm going to repot it, trim it up, and I may or may not do fast forward. Probably going to clean up some of the bark here because it's got algae on it, or mold, or whatever this black stuff is. I'm not sure if it's mold or if it's algae. So I'm going to clean that up, and hopefully you like the video. Hopefully you stick around for the whole thing. Enjoy. First thing I'm going to do is trim it up, cut off all the dead stuff first. Got some new shears, left them out in the sprinkler, so they rested a little bit. They still cut really well. I like them. They're nice and strong. Not super expensive, so that was nice too. And hopefully you can hear me over the roosters when they're crowing. I've got a young rooster that's starting to crow now too, and he doesn't stop. When he starts going, he gets going and just. I think he likes the sound of his own voice, so that's adorable, but can be kind of annoying. So this branch right here is growing like straight up into this section here. It doesn't have a whole lot of life on it, so I'm going to just remove that whole branch. This tree has had a couple of prunings, but I haven't done a ton of work to it, so this is still definitely in the developmental stage of this tree. So trying to determine what branches are good, what branches are excessively long. If I want to keep the lateral branches here, I really think I like that branch. It looks pretty good sitting across there. Makes the tree look bigger and wider, so I'll probably keep that one. A little bit of in between. It'd be kind of nice if some of these tips would like actually grow out instead of just up. So later on, once that gets a little bit more strength to it, I'll wire it out, make it go out instead of just up. Hopefully it does some backbiting and whatnot, and get more branches too. I'm not an expert on this tree. I have kept it alive for a couple of years, so I'm doing something right. Mostly I've just been keeping it watered and lightly fertilizing it. This tree, I do know this tree, when you do wire it, the larger branches, if you bend them too much, they will snap off. They don't just crack, they just break right off. So that is one thing to be careful with these. You don't want to just snap the branches off. Unless that's what you're going for. Have at it, I guess, you know? Some of these interior branches, if you cut them off, it makes the tree look super bare, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'm looking at this branch right here. Not 100% convinced I want to take that off yet. So I want this branch to still have some strength because it's got this little bit of foliage and this little bit of foliage here. So if I take all this off, then it's not going to have a whole lot of strength to it. So I don't want to do that yet. This tree does look pretty equally bare in most of the areas, so I'm sure it needs a repot. It needs a little bit more space for its size. This tree did come out of the ground and went right into a small pot, so it's done okay for being in that situation. Considering maybe next year I'll leave the berries on it and let them mature and see if I can get some seeds out of it. Maybe I can grow a tree from seeds. I'll probably cut out some of the stuff that I'm doing in this video because this is going to take a little while, and in this fast-paced world, most people don't watch a video unless it's all super exciting, and I'm not sure how to make this super exciting picking all the berries up, so I'll probably cut some of this out. The leaves are pretty sturdy on these trees, so I mean, you don't have to be too worried about just pulling the leaves off while you're pinching the berries off. Some of the leaves will fall off, but I mean, if they fall off, they weren't sturdy anyway, so This is the last bit of berries here. Alright, if I find more, I'll just pick them off later. So, didn't really see any more branches, maybe a couple that are dead here. Take these off. The ones that are going straight down like this, you definitely want to take those off. Doesn't look good in this situation here. So I've heard a lot of people say that branches on older trees don't go straight down, don't grow straight up. And I've been looking at a lot of older trees lately, trying to get better ideas of what I want my bonsais to look like, because I want them to look like natural trees. I don't necessarily want to follow all the rules of Japanese bonsai or Chinese bonsai or any of the typical triangular shaped. You can all see all the trunk and all the branches are on the side of the tree, and you got one back branch and all that stuff. I mean, to each his own. Those are beautiful trees, don't get me wrong. I think they're beautiful trees, but when I look at a tree, I want to look at a tree from all the angles and see that it's a tree. Like, I could go out in the woods and walk around this tree, and that's what I would see. So I try to make all my trees as natural as possible. Because I love trees. I love big trees. I love bonsai trees. That's why I do bonsai trees, because I just always loved plants and stuff like that. So when I got into bonsai trees, I really started looking at a lot of the trees in nature to see what they looked like, so I could mimic that in my bonsai garden. So I've been looking at a lot of trees, and I've noticed that some of the older trees do have branches that hang straight down, and they do have some branches that grow straight up. They have branches on the interior of the trunk, on the interior of the branches. Yes, most of the really old trees don't have stuff on the interior, kind of like this one here. It doesn't have stuff right on the interior, on the main giant branches. You will see some little leaders or shoots coming out of some of the branches every so often on larger trees, but they do generally have most of their foliage on the outside. But there are trees that I've seen that do have branches on the inside. So taking all the branches out of the inside, like, really don't think you're going to be able to see this, but maybe I'll just move the camera in really quick. Alright, bear with me. Don't want to shake you up too bad. But, like these branches right here, I'll use my pointer real quick. Like this branch right here, where am I at? There we go. It's kind of on the inside. You got all of this out here on the outside of the branch. This one's kind of on the inside. You got this one here. It's on the inside. You know, these ones are kind of on the inside. There's all this out here in front of it. So these are on the inside, but they look good. They fill out the tree. They don't look unnatural. You know, they don't really look cluttered or anything like that either. So what I'm trying to do with this tree today is to take like these long branches, because this branch is this long all the way up to here. Okay, it goes all the way down here. So I'm going to shorten this branch to about here to keep the profile of the tree, to keep it looking like it's a natural tree. So I'm going to move this in just a little bit if I can without getting too crazy. I got stuff behind the camera, so trying to work around it. Tough sometimes. Anyway, so that's the kind of stuff I'm going to do. And when you're growing a tree, you always want to go from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 4 to 8, so and so on. I mean, you want to keep going with that, so that you have more solar panels. It's just one of the leaves is a solar panel to make the leaves smaller. So if you have a large a tree with large leaves, like I'll show you this really cool young cutting. It's all wet, just got watered. It's got all these giant leaves on it, right? They're really big. There's only a few of them, so they need to be big. So once this tree gets larger, the leaves will be smaller like this one because it'll have more of them. So as this gets bigger, as it branches out, as it goes from 1 to 2, which it's not really going from 1 to 2 yet. So it's kind of going from 1 to the branches. So once these branches go to 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then, or 4, 8, yeah, I'm terrible at math right now. So anyway, so once they go to from 1 to 2, 2 to 4, then the leaves will get smaller as it gets more leaves. Alright, so back to this tree. So what I'm trying to do is 1 to 2 right now, because that's kind of where this tree is at. It's at the 2 stage. So you want to pick the branch that's either in the worst position or the branch that's either the weakest or the strongest. So in this case, I've got this one, and this one. This one's not part of it, that's a different branch. And it's kind of crossing over this branch. So I'm kind of thinking that I'm going to keep this branch, and I'm going to keep this branch and get rid of the weak branch, so that it's not crossing the other branch. And that opens this space up. Alright, so this branch has some place to be. And it's going from 1 to 2. Right, so that's where this is at. That's where I'm at on this tree. I'm not at the 4th stage yet. So what that means is this tree is still in development. It's not in refinement, it's in development. So you want to allow the tree to develop. So you want to let your branches grow a little bit longer to create more branches. So if I cut this back here, there's no branches here, so this branch is just going to be shorter. It's not going to increase, it's not going to ramify, it's not going to do anything. It may or may not produce more branches down the road. That would be awesome if it did, but there's still a chance that it won't. So if I leave this and let it grow and let it elongate, then once it has branches, then I can go back and prune it down to from 1 to 2, and if there's 3 or 4, then I can take off the ones that I don't need and have it go from 1 to 2, because it would be 1 to 2 and then to 4 right there. So yeah, that's where I'm going with this tree right now. And as you can see, it's going from 1 to 2, and they're short branches. And like I said earlier, I'm not an expert on this tree, so I don't exactly know everything and how this tree grows, but that's what I want to accomplish, is the 1 to 2, 2 to 4. So this one has a branch here in this branch. That would be a 2, and it kind of looks like this here. I hope you can see this. It looks like this right here is going to be another branch. So once this branch and this branch develops, then I can go back and take that branch off. But if I take this branch off now, and one of those branches dies, then I'm back to 2. Or I would still be at 2, but if they both die, then I'm back to no branch, because it would definitely die back to here, and that would not be a branch. So I'm going to let that grow out, make sure that I have some strength in that branch so that I can continue where I'm at with that. Another spot right here, and like I said, I really hope you guys can see these spots here. I've got the main branch right here, and I've got a branch coming out this side, the same side, and then one coming out the top, and then the 2 at the end. So this branch definitely needs a lot more foliage. But I've got this, the end of this branch is going off into this branch. It doesn't look good. It is 2 branches, but it just really doesn't look good. So I am going to cut this one back, because I have these other 3 branches that can develop, and if they die off, I'll just cut this branch off, and it'll be a bare spot for now. And then this I'll bring up into this area. So I am cutting that off to give this branch some more room, because this branch is doing okay. So this branch here is growing straight up, and I've got the two branches on this, or a branch on the side here, a branch behind it, this branch. There's another little branch right here. So I am going to take this one off because it's grown way far out of the realm of the tree here. And I have two pretty strong branches right there, so I'm relatively confident that those branches will survive and continue growing this tree. This other one, I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to leave this one for now. Actually, I am going to take this one off because there's two relatively strong branches right here. So I'm going to take this one off. Let's make it two. Just like that. And then this one, it is way out of the scope of the tree right here, but it's very sparse. So I'm going to let that grow out until it gets stronger, and then I'll go back and trim off some stuff or prune it. Now this tree, the first time I pruned it, I just went in and kind of hacked it up. I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing with the tree yet. Obviously I was going to turn it into a bonsai and let it develop, but it was a lot bigger than this profile. So I knew that if I put it in a small pot that it wouldn't survive because it had too much foliage and it wouldn't have enough roots. So you kind of want to keep those close in ratio, roots to foliage, so that your roots can feed the foliage and the foliage can feed the roots, because they feed back and forth. So you want to make sure that they're pretty close. I mean, you're not always going to get them exact. Once the tree starts growing again, you get new growth, then the roots grow, and then it equals out itself. So in this case, it can't equal out because the pot's too small. So what I need to do is I need to put this guy into a bigger pot. So I'm going to grab my tray here and dump this bonsai soil out because I need to clean it. So like I've said in the previous videos, I reuse most of my bonsai soil. I clean it. I'll take it out of the pot, obviously dry it out, and I'll sift out the tiny particles and try and get out the roots that are left in the soil. And then I will rinse the soil out to get all the rest of the tiny particles off the rocks and stuff like that. And then I will dry it out and then add stuff if I need to, or whatever I need to do with it, and then I'll reuse it. So I'm gonna grab my toothbrush and some water here so that I can clean this tree off here. I don't need a whole lot of water, just enough to get the toothbrush wet. I'm gonna work on this section here because it's got that black stuff on it. Just want to get it cleaned off. Having a clean trunk is really good for your tree. It keeps it from rotting. This tree seems like it would do really well in a moist climate, which is Florida. It's kind of a moist climate. So I'm not exactly sure where this tree is from in China, but it does really well because it's not rotting. It's still nice and solid, so I'm not too worried about this rotting away like some other trees. I don't have any examples. I'm not sure right off the top of my head of trees that'll just rot. But anyway, I want to get the moss off the top of the tree because that just doesn't look good right now. Maybe later I'll let it grow, but right now I want to keep it clean and make sure that the trunk is growing properly, because it will eat at the bark also, so I don't really want that. And I'll eat at the roots also, so I don't want that right now either. Once it's a really big tree and it's got plenty of roots and bark and all that stuff, it won't be as big a deal. So I've got a wire right here holding the tree into the pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cutters, cut that wire off, have it going underneath this root right here. I really like this root. That's pretty cool, I think. Cleaned up too. I know a lot of times I'll completely bare root trees out here. This one I don't know if you can do that, so I'm not going to. I'm going to just take as much off as I need to repot it. See if I can pull this out while I'm here. I used aluminum wire to hold the tree in the pot because it doesn't corrode as easily. So I didn't want it to get stuck in the pot. You can use copper wire on holding the trees in the pot, just I didn't want to on this one. I repotted another tree earlier, so anyway, so after this, I'm going to make sure and remove all the weeds that I can right now so I don't have to try and get them out of the soil later. I am going to remove the moss off the top of the soil here too, as much as I can. I'm not going to go too crazy and try to remove every little bit of it, a clump or whatever, but I want to kind of save it because I'm going to put this back on the tree because I like the moss. It looks really good. I don't need it as much here in Florida as some other places. The moss will help keep moisture in the soil. In other places that get really hot and dry, obviously Florida gets hot, but it's not as dry as other places, so I don't need it as much, but I like the way it looks, so I'll keep some of it. And when I take the moss and leave it in the bonsai soil, when I clean it out and all that stuff, it stays, some of the pores or the spores will stay in the soil and then it'll grow on the next tree that I put the soil on, so it's kind of cool that way. So I am going to remove some of the surface stuff here, so I want to find out if there's roots that I can put more on the surface of the soil now to make it look more like it has a better nabari. This tree does have an reverse taper right here. It goes in, kind of looks like a bulge. It's kind of got one here too. I don't think that makes the tree look terrible at this point. I mean, maybe later I'll not like it, but at this point it doesn't make it look terrible. Plus I can let these roots grow larger right here because it's got this really nice root that's growing out right here. Make that grow larger, and then it'll possibly correct the reverse taper here, or make it not look as bad. Maybe it won't completely correct it, but maybe it won't look as bad. So I've got a really nice root going across here too. I'm going to try and uncover that. And I'm trying not to scratch the roots too much, so I don't know how they'll react to that yet. Sometimes it's a really good idea to do some research on your trees before you repot them. I have a couple of these. This tree's been doing really good. I repotted it before, so I'm not too worried about it. But some trees, you got to be really careful with their repottings. I'm going to take some of these nasty roots off here. I've got a root that's growing over the top of this big root. I'm going to take that off completely. I don't want it choking out my root or making it some weird shape, because it'll put an indent right there. I used some really fine soil, bonsai soil on this tree when I first repotted it. I don't know if that has an effect on how it's growing or not. I'm going to use coarser bonsai soil for its repotting. We'll see how that does. One of the things I really like about bonsai is it can be experimental. You don't have to know everything to grow bonsai trees. You just have to know the basics to get started. I mean, eventually you're going to know a lot more, and definitely learn. Definitely keep learning and keep growing in your knowledge of the trees and what you're working with. That's also what I do with the experimenting with what I'm doing and what I'm using and how big of a pot or how small of a pot I can put a tree into. So when you are repotting a tree, you definitely want to tease out the outside roots of the tree. You want to tease these out, because if you just take this out of the pot, put it into another pot and fill it in, this will be the root ball. It won't grow into the other soil. Maybe one or two roots, but it typically won't, and it will not do any better than what it was doing before. So we repot for a reason. A lot of times it's because the tree's too big for the pot, the soil is broken down and we need to give it new soil, or because we just don't like the pot that it was in. It's gotten to its refinement stage, or its final pot. So there's a lot of different reasons why we repot. This one is the developmental stage, and that pot was just too small now. So I'm taking out all the outside stuff here, trying to make it to where you guys can see, but I'm right-handed, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. That can be a little bit of ambidextrous here. So I'm just kind of poking the pick into the roots and kind of moving it, or just kind of like that, to break up the soil and the outside edges here. And I'm feeling also, as I'm doing this, to feel if there's roots inside the soil here, so that I can know what I'm working with and how big the root ball is and how thick it is and how dense it is. And this one's got a relatively dense root ball, which is awesome. You can definitely see that this tree was ready for a repot, because this has got a lot of little bitty feet of roots, which is great. That's why it's as healthy as it is, but yet still needing a repot. Alright, so I'm going to finish this up and then I'll get it in another pot. So that looks pretty good. I got this all separated out. I'm not going to trim any of this off because there's not anything to trim off of it. So I'm going to move this out of the way and put my new pot up here. I'm going to kind of lean this on some stuff. I got some new stuff to show you guys later. Really excited about it. Getting a screen for the new pot here. A little bit big. Put it down a little bit. There we go. Got that there. And this tree, I don't think I'm going to wire it in this time, because the last time I wired it in, obviously it was a tiny little pot, and the pot was plastic, so it would fall over, and I didn't want it to fall out of the pot, because that's never good. So I am going to spill water all over myself and then put some soil in this pot here. This is actually soil that I just cleaned out yesterday, so it does still have some moisture in it. It's not completely dry, but that'll be okay. But I didn't use a torch on the roots and stuff that's in it, so there is still some stuff. So I'll probably be picking that out as I'm going. It's not a huge big deal to leave some of the little roots in there, because it's just going to break down and turn into nutrients for the tree. Some people really frown on that, and I'm sure they have a really good reason. I don't know what that reason is off the top of my head, but I'm sure they have a good reason for that. So I'm going to put in a layer across the whole bottom here. I'm going to do the whole bottom because obviously the tree doesn't reach the whole bottom. And I want it to sit up higher because it's sagging in the pot there. So I'm going to add what I need to add to make it sit up higher, and then obviously do the centered mound so I can push the roots into the soil here. I'm going to take out the larger mats of roots though. Mound it up a little bit. And then I'm going to tip my head down close to the level of the pot so I can look at it. Get it squished down in there to where I want it. So I want these roots to be above the pot, but I don't want the little bitty roots to be above the pot. So I'm going to add just a little bit more here. I do want the tree to sit upright like it was. I like that angle. So I'm going to make sure it sits upright in the pot. Every time I smash it down the wrong side. There we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Fits the pot a lot better. I think that pot looks pretty good with it too. It doesn't take away from the color of the tree really. I don't know if this will be the final pot, probably not. This tree will get bigger. So I'm going to fill in, I'm going to pick a little bit right here because it still looks like these roots are kind of tight. Pick it a little bit and see if I can make these roots stick out into the pot a little bit more. Give it more of a radial root base here. The radial root base is a good thing for a bonsai tree. You do want the roots to fan out from the trunk outwards. That's how a real tree in nature, a natural tree would grow. And I'm just going to fill in around the outside here. I'm going to let this sit the soil a little bit lower than the pot this time. It was right up to the edge of the pot when I put it in the smaller pot, and I really didn't like that as much. It runs the soil out of the pot. I don't want it way down here like this, but I want it not right up to the edge because I don't want to run all the soil out of the pot. And then as it grows, it'll lift itself. It'll lift itself up out of the pot too. So I want to give it some room to do that. So while I was out in Colorado, I went to all the garden centers that I could possibly get to while I was out there because I just love garden centers. But I was looking for the lava rock, I think it's 1/4 inch size lava rock, the little stuff that I use for the bonsai soil. And I can't really find it out here in Florida, like in the garden centers where I'm at. So I brought me back a bag from Colorado. That's a long drive to go get lava rock. So if any of y'all know any place like online or whatever that I could order lava rock that's not ridiculously expensive, that would be awesome to hear from y'all about that. There's a couple of places that I found online, but they're rather expensive, and I don't know if it's just because everything's getting expensive because of the COVID and nobody wanting to go back to work or whatever it is, but it's pricey, so I don't want to spend too much on it, but obviously I need it, so if that's the only case that I can get it that way, then I have to spend the money and get the more expensive stuff. But somebody knows a good place, that would be awesome. Thank you. So I'm gonna tamp all this in, get everything underneath the tree. So you want to work it under the tree, make sure that it's solid around the edge of the roots. And I already made the radial root base, so I'm not trying to like jam all the roots up under there too. I just wanted to put the soil up under there. So a lot of the ways that I've seen is you put the chopstick in there, wiggle it around, and it works it down in there. It kind of follows the chopstick down in to where you're putting it. So that works really well. It also gets it nice and tight all the way around because it kind of pushes everything against itself and then it falls into the hole. So it works really nicely. I don't always do it that way, but in a case where I'm trying to keep the roots where they're at, that's how I'll do it. This is a big pot. I'm going to, when I put this on the bench, I am going to use a piece of wire on the bench going around the top of the pot. I'm going to put it over the top of the roots right here and right here for a while. I'll probably put a piece of hose right here to keep the wire from damaging the trunk, or I might put the excuse me, I might put the wire through here to hold it down here instead of going over the trunk. That's probably what I'll do. But I'm going to hold it down so that it doesn't blow out of the pot or fall off the bench while it's putting roots in. And after a couple of weeks, I'm hoping that it'll be pretty solid. And we get a lot of wind out here anyway, so it's good to for me to wire my trees to the bench. Put that water in there. So I'm going to put the moss back up on here. I'm going to spread it out a little bit. This stuff will recover the pot or the soil here in just a couple of weeks, month or so. Now that it's starting to turn into summer. I'm so excited about summer. I love summer. I like spring, but I love summer. That's my happy place. It's summertime. Alright, get rid of that wire. So that is looking pretty good. Trunk still needs kind of some cleaning. I'm gonna use my my spray bottle here. Spray it down. When I first got this tree, the whole trunk was green, and it was bark, but it was green because of the algae that was on it. So I scrubbed this tree for a couple of hours actually when I first got it to get it clean again. I actually kind of like the trunk how it's like that. It makes this tree have some character. I know a lot of people think that's gross and ugly and whatever, but because it's my tree, I can do whatever I want with it. I like that. I like that about bonsai, that you can make your tree look the way you want to. I can make my tree look the way I want to, and they're both beautiful in their own way. You know, we have an opportunity to show our personality in our trees, which is really exciting, I think. And it seems like these days, in this day and age, we don't have as much opportunity to show our personality and the stuff that we do, the work that we do, whatever. It's got to be exactly this way or that way or whatever. And I just love the fact that with bonsai I can be who I want to be. You know, I can make my trees look the way I want to make my trees, because ultimately I'm the one that's looking at the trees every day. So if I don't like the way it looks because it looks a certain way, and it has to look a certain way, then I don't even think I would be doing bonsai. I wouldn't do it. So I want it to be my tree. You know, if I'm gonna work on somebody else's tree, which I really hope I can do that in the future. If I'm gonna work on somebody else's tree and they tell me how they want it, then obviously I would make it how they want it, because it's their tree. They're gonna be the one looking at it every day. So in that case, absolutely, that's their tree. I'll help them out and do the best that I can to make it look the way they want it. But when it's my tree, I'm gonna make it look the way I want it. Not worry about what everybody else thinks about it. I am being careful not to scrape too much of the bark off right here. I'm just trying to get the algae off, or the moss off the trunk, and I can feel the difference. You can feel it's like really soft where there's algae, and then it feels like bark. I mean, you can feel the difference between this and this. That's going to be a really sweet root once it starts developing more. You can tell more once it's dried, whether it's clean or not. I did kind of scrape a little bit deep right there, but it'll be okay. Alright, so that is looking pretty good. I think I'm going to bump the camera if I yank on this, so I won't yank on this. So I'm going to water the top of the soil here. This tree was watered this morning, and this soil is relatively moist still from when I cleaned it. So I'm going to water the moss on the top here, get it set in the soil. Just like that. And most of the time I will soak the tree when I'm watering it. I will soak it and get all the dirt and whatever debris out of the soil when it's been sitting in the bucket or whatever for a long time, because it does start developing dust in the bucket. So anyway, I'll generally soak it down, but this is freshly rinsed, so I don't need to do that. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you stayed till the end. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.